You're listening to yet another episode of Generation Zennial. You know, one day I'm going to look up ahead of time to see what number episode we're on. So I can be like, this is episode number I'm doing right now.
I'm guessing 18.
This is a live take. No,
it's either 18 or 19.
19. This is episode 19.
We're up to 19 episodes.
19 episodes. And we only missed a couple weeks because we were, holidays.
We got holidays. We were busy with snow days and taking care of kids. And
I feel like for a podcast that you just said, hey, let's do, and if you get to 19, if you get to 20, I'm like, wow, we did something. It's like, that's a commitment.
Yeah, we are. At least we're committed.
Yeah.
if anything, we are committed to meeting once a week and doing this podcast.
I can make a dad joke there, like, or you could be committed.
That is a dad joke.
Yeah, that is a dad joke. Sorry, because my dad used to say it. It's that's why.
Yeah,
it was something like that. It's always funny because like growing up in East Hartford, in Hartford we had Asylum Street where the asylum used to be.
That's
so
right for
easy built-in jokes right there. And then the radio station always talked about Asylum Street and had promotions on the bars on Asylum. They tried, because it was the
you gotta use what you got. So.
The alt rock station. No, that was the hard rock station that was always doing that.
You gotta use what you got, and if you have an Asylum Street, you gotta lean into that.
If you are the hard rock station in a city that's independently owned at the time, and playing off of CDs, like they're still playing off of CDs in early 2000s.
Remember independent radio stations?
I do, sadly.
Those were a thing.
Yeah, 106.9 in Hartford was like the last holdout in our region that was still like an independently owned. They didn't have the big computer server system. They were playing off of CDs, and you knew that because once in a while the CD would skip.
That's awesome.
And they would come in and be like, "Yep, see, we're still playing it live.
We're still old school.
That's
why we're so terrible."
No, they were great though.
I know. Yeah, but that's why they had technical issues. That's not a very good argument for
But there was no other station where like, hey, it's 7:00. We're gonna play like 40 minutes of Metallica now, because we can.
We're not mandated by our bosses to play certain music. That's
is the 8 p.m. heavy metal hour. Well, it was all heavy metal all day, but they'd be like, this is the Metallica hour, and just like, okay, we're gonna play Kill 'Em All, the entire album, because we can, and we're gonna do that.
I think the local rock station around here does do that, but it's like sometimes at like 11 o'clock at night. Like,
when you're
at any time
when you're in
really
bed
actually
already
listening. It's more like maybe like a Sunday afternoon or something.
3 o'clock in the morning. That's how they all do it now. It's like, oh yeah, we're gonna do like I was listening to the radio the other day. I do occasionally when I don't feel like having to pick a song for my kids in the car. I'll just put on the radio so we can hear music. And they're like, oh yeah, if you're a local band, send us your stuff in, and then we'll do the local band hour. They have like the local band hour.
That's
like
something.
I know, but it's like PLR used to do it on like 8 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon, Sunday night. It's like, oh, we'll play 1 hour of local music at 8 p.m. on Sunday.
Hey.
It's like, I know you're trying, but
I don't even think we have anything like that around here that I know of. I'll be honest with you. The moment I noticed that I felt like I was getting older was when I realized I stopped listening to music on the radio a lot more. And that was, I started listening to NPR more on the radio or talk shows because I was like, you get to a certain age and like new music just doesn't appeal to you anymore. It's not made for you. And it's just like, and I've heard all the other songs that I like so many times. And if I want to hear a song, you
just put it on.
It's at the tip of my fingers. Like I can listen to basically any song I want to anytime I want to now. So yeah, that's when I was like, oh no, I basically just listen to like NPR and left wing radio, and then once in a while I hate listening to right wing radio on the rides home when I can get it. Luckily, it's weird. I can't really get that much right wing radio like I used to. This doesn't come in like it used to. I can get it around like the Poughkeepsie area, but once I get like halfway to Poughkeepsie to Kingston, it doesn't come in anymore, which is funny because the left wing radio I can get from like halfway to Kingston to Poughkeepsie. So I kind of switch over to left wing radio to right wing radio because we got Radio Woodstock and another independent radio station, which I don't know the name of, that plays like Tom Hartman. Mm-hmm. And there's another guy, I can never remember his name, but he's a big like labor guy. So I like to listen to him.
We going off like, well, Yeah, I listen to either NPR in the car, or I mostly listen to podcasts. Honestly, it's just like put on the phone and listen to my podcast that I downloaded already. Um,
Yeah, I
the
feel like the
radios,
issue with podcasts
radio's
for
like the
me.
backup. The radio's the backup with the kids. Like I just don't want to listen to the news right now because the kids are in the car, and I'm just gonna put on radio.
You don't want to depress your kids.
And I don't want to listen to, Believer for like the 1 millionth time because that's what my kids want to hear. And it's not a bad song. Like it's a good song. Like they're good. Imagine Dragons is a good band. Like their music is good, but when your kids can only know like 5 songs and that's all they always ask for, it's like, guys, there's more songs. Then
Yeah, it's
then
weird
then once in a while they'll
because
ask
you
for
feel
like
like that.
Queen or something. And I'm like, yes,
You
let's put
just
on
feel like you
Queen.
can listen to the same thing or watch the same thing over and over and over and over again, and for some reason it never gets boring, and you
Well, they
just kind
also
of stick to what you like when you're that age.
It's true. I mean, but going back to like, listening to the same music that you listen to when you're younger. A couple years ago I heard, they people talked about that. It's like the fact is that, we tend to our musical taste gets locked in during like when we're 12. Like that's our like 12 to 14, like whatever we're listening to then, that's our like for the rest of our life that we end up listening to.
I guess I'm an anomaly then, because I don't remember what I listened to. I guess like that was a lot of like alt rock
Yeah.
back in the day. I mean, I still do like REM. I listened to a lot of them in like early high school, middle school.
But it's like anything
Um,
that you were listening to when you're an adolescent, basically, when you're coming of age, that kind of like locks into like what you
I used to
identify
be a
with as like your
huge
music.
Blues Traveler fan.
Oh,
I used to love Blues Traveler. They were like my second favorite. Remember like the Columbia CD gimmick
yes.
there? That yeah, that's I got their whole like backlog after 4 came out, and that came out like 96, 94, 95. So yeah, I was around like maybe like 15, 16.
Hmm.
I remember getting like their whole like back catalog of like albums, and like it was a huge Blues Traveler, huge Dave Matthews Band fan. And I really don't listen to Blues Traveler anymore. I haven't
Oh
heard.
man.
The last album I got was the one. I don't remember the name of the song. So we're not even gonna get to it.
When
But
when I was at Columbia Records, I just was like buying all the classic rock albums because I was getting into like all the classic rock at the time, like Creedence and Yes and all that stuff. Cream. Like I was discovering
yeah,
like, oh, this is really good
some
music.
great music back in the day.
Oh, it's so good music. It's like,
Actually, like listened to a really good video about protest music and
mm,
how the 60s and the early 70s had a lot of good protest music, and we didn't really get that in our generation. Like we got a little bit during like the Bush early like Iraq War type deal, but I guess like the biggest hit there was like Green Day's American Idiot. Like
yeah, but I'm gonna argue with that fact with you. Actually, I think there's a lot more protest music out there that we don't recognize as protest music.
yeah, it's maybe a lot more subtle.
Well, I'm gonna say because like
But it's
we
not.
we're
It
thinking
doesn't win
of
anybody over, right? Because the idea behind music now, and this has a lot to do with capitalism, is the idea that you need to make everything mainstream to get popular, because the things that's going to get popular is what's going to make money. And you saw it like the Dixie Chicks. What happened to them?
oh yeah,
Like you start speaking out against things that like half the population doesn't like, and it's gonna hurt you financially. So
but I'm gonna go back to the early days of hip hop and rap. Like a lot of that is protest music. You think
yeah,
about
but
NWA, that's
that was
protest
30 years
music,
ago, though.
right? But that's still,
Yeah,
but
that was
that was
30
while
years ago.
all right. Trying to
Like
think
think
more
about
recent
think about the past 10 years.
Think
Like what kind of protest music? I mean, Eminem, a couple songs,
there's stuff out there. It's just like you said,
but it's
it's
not
not.
popular, right? It
Well,
doesn't hit. It doesn't hit It doesn't hit the mainstream. It's not getting
it doesn't
radio
hit
play
the
because
it doesn't hit the white mainstream.
maybe
That's my
not.
point.
But
That's my point. It's what we grew up as with listening to protest music. Those were all white bands that got played on white radio and got promoted. A lot of the newer protest music is more hip hop and talking
which is
about,
fine.
but it's
But
not.
it also
It doesn't get
it doesn't
promoted
seem
the
like it
same
gets
way.
pushed like it used to. Well, maybe
No.
that has to do with race, but
And it also has to do with like, also think about the way kind of going back to where we started this conversation with independent radio. Everything is a corporate radio now.
exactly.
MTV doesn't play music anymore. And then when you talk about radio, it's all programmed by somebody, and they're just looking for, we're just gonna program music that people we know like, and no one takes risks playing new music anymore on the radio.
Or they
So-
get paid to play.
or they get, there's pay to play. There's one person that's programming 10 stations, so there's no diversity between stations across 5 states because the same person is programming all those stations. So you don't get that same underground swell of like, hey, I like this track, we're just gonna play it. Today Vanilla Ice would never be a thing today because no one would ever flipped over to the B side and played Ice Ice Baby, because like that's how he got famous. Like someone just like, hey, let's play the B side, and people liked it. Like that wouldn't happen today because there's no place for DJs at a local station to make their own independent thought about what the local culture is into and play the local music. Like that just doesn't happen.
Yeah, like Whoop There It Is. Which, if anyone doesn't know what Whoop There It Is like it was a phenomenon in the mid 90s there. Like there was a huge Whoop There It Is movement in the 1990s, but that was a strip club song. It was, and that's where it came out of, and it somehow got popular and started getting played, and next thing you know, it's like a worldwide, or at least North American phenomenon.
It all goes back to strip clubs, doesn't it?
That song was huge.
Yeah, it was huge.
It was everywhere.
And there's variants of it, there's.
But yeah, everything is so manufactured now, and everything is so like algorithm based and performance based that it is hard to get that kind of sound out there, that kind of message out there nowadays. Because if it doesn't appeal to the masses, it's just not going to get heard. I mean, I'm sure it's out there, but it's like I said, it's just not in the mainstream.
Yeah, and the other part of it I always wonder is, we growing up, we look back at protest songs of the 70s and we see that they're protest songs, and
they're quite obviously protest songs,
right? But like
there's no doubt that Eve of Destruction is a protest song.
I always
or
just
Fortunate Son, or
I just always wonder. Well, apparently not everyone understands that Fortunate Son is a protest song.
I swear that was a troll. Like, if you don't know what we're talking about, like Donald Trump used Fortunate Son as like one of his like
campaign
songs at rallies, or
like
like when he landed his plane, like. And I swear someone in his administration was just trolling him and being like, "Oh yeah, well, like, yeah, everyone loves this song. We'll use it." And like,
or the sound guy's nephew,
and he never listened to the lyrics, and he was like, "Oh yeah, that's a popular song. Like, I like the tune." And yeah, we'll use that. And people were like, and it was the same people with like singing "Killing in the Name of," and like
not understanding
conservatives using like
there you go. There's protest music right there.
Yeah, but that's 90s, right?
Yeah.
That's still 90s. Like I'm trying to think of anything like that compares to like in the past 10 years.
You're right. There's nothing mainstream. I mean, I know there are stuff out there. In fact, a couple years ago,
of course there's stuff out there. But you have to really go look for it.
Right? I worked on a podcast that talked about this. Like I worked on a whole podcast episode with somebody else that I edited, where and we interviewed a current artist talking about protest and resistance music. Like that was the whole genre of the episode. So it is still a current thing, but like you said, it's not as mainstream. It's not as in your face.
Out there. Of course, people are still going to make music.
And the thing with like Rage Against the Machine too,
it's not going to get the play that it used to.
Yeah, and the only way you get it played is if it's more subtle. Like Beyonce gets stuff played because she's Beyonce and she makes one protest song.
Right.
So she made like one song. But again, even still, she made it, but we don't all listen to it. It's not as played. It's also here's the other thing about the diversity of media. Like, go back 30 years, go back 40 years. There weren't as many media outlets there. There weren't as many choices for you to consume your media. So, you have your supergroups out there, and if they just start, CCR and Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young start making protest music, it gets played because they're already well known, and they start playing it because there's only 2 radio stations in your neighborhood that you can listen to anyways. Even in the early days of cable TV, you only had 30, 40 channels. MTV still played music on it. So, when Rage Gets Out, they're playing Killing in the Name of on MTV, and they're making money off of it. But now we got cable packages with hundreds of channels. You have Spotify and Apple Music where you can just listen to whatever you want at the drop of a hat. So you don't have to, when something drops, someone comes out with a song, because we're not in the position where we're forced to turn on the radio and listen to whatever the radio plays. We're not forced to listen to it in a sense.
But also, isn't it funny that we do have more options, but those options are coming from less people? Does that make sense?
No, I totally.
That's kind of a weird like.
Look at
oxymoron, isn't it?
look, we
Weird
just
some
subscribed to
contradiction.
we just subscribed to Discovery Plus, which has like 8 or 10 brands under Discovery. You know, it's like
Right.
Discovery, TLC, Science Channel, Food Network, Cooking Channel. You
Yeah,
know,
who are they owned by? They're owned by one of the big conglomerates. I mean, media. I mean, there's really only what, three or four or five maybe,
it's
like
5.
really big like outlets for
We have Disney. You have
NBC Universal,
NBC Universal, Viacom.
Paramount. Oh, Paramount is owned by Viacom,
Oh
right?
yeah, no, Paramount owns Viacom.
Yeah. So they're all
Sorry.
the same.
So Disney, NBC Universal. You have Paramount, Sony. And when you're talking about Sony doesn't own networks per se, but they own studios that
Yes,
produce a
they
lot
do.
of things.
They
So
do produce a lot.
and when it comes to music, they own a lot. Because like when you think about it, Sony makes Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune.
Yeah.
They own those properties. They just sell it to a subsidiary like Disney. You know, those are magazine shows that get purchased by somebody else. So I know there's the other one I'm missing. I can't think of what it is right now. I haven't taught 101 in 6 years.
Comcast?
So well, that was part of the NBC deal.
That's right. That's right. They just got bought, right?
That was a while ago now.
Well,
It's like 10 years ago. Jeez.
well, time flies.
Yeah, it does. Oh, what is the other one? I can't think of it. But yeah, it used to be Fox, but Fox got bought by Disney.
Fox got bought by Disney, but the Fox still owns they still own their
TV
television.
channels. They own
Right.
television, but they sold all their music, all their movie property.
Right.
So like you said, we have more choices to view things, but we have less people telling us what we can view. And then on the tech side, you have Google, Apple, and something Facebook. It's like Google, Apple, Facebook. Google, Apple, Facebook, and Amazon control everything else.
Yeah, it's some crazy late stage capitalism.
We've gone back to monopolization, and we've gone back to the robber baron era. Basically, this is like we're going back to Rockefeller and Carnegie Mellon, where you have all these very wealthy people that control so much, and it's going to take another effort. Just the same way the railroads and the steel got broken up, the big tech and the media companies need to be broken up as well, and that's
remember when all the telecom companies all got broken up?
Oh yeah, when Ma Bell got broken up, and
then
they
just
came back together.
Yeah,
because like it broke out. Now we have SNET and we have this, and then all of a sudden, we're all back part of AT&T again, and it was like
someone thought that was a good idea, and taxes are lower, so they're making even more money than they were back when they were super huge corporations.
It's like there's I see the pros to having, like when it comes to technology, anyways, the pro to having say if you're in an ecosystem, it's easier for all your stuff to work together if you're all Google or if you're all Apple, just because all your stuff works together. Now the downside is one company is controlling all of your things.
Yeah, and when they start controlling things like social media and
right.
your access to information, that's when it becomes like kind of scary.
Yeah, when Facebook owns Instagram and WhatsApp, that's where I start having problems, because now it's like, I'm going to leave Facebook to go to Instagram, but it's still all the same algorithms behind the scenes. You're just doing in a different way.
And I think they would try to argue that the consumers actually control that, but we all know that that's not the way things work.
No, their algorithms are designed to promote things that make you mad, so that way you stay engaged longer and stay on the platform longer, so they can sell more ad revenue to their people. And the problem is I've realized this, once you become a publicly traded company, then unfortunately it's always about how do I make more profit? Yeah. How do I make more profit? Because your shareholders need you to continue to make more profit.
Exactly. And that's the problem with late stage capitalism, is that I've had this argument with somebody in the past on Facebook. It was like, well, the corporation's job is to look out for the shareholders. I'm like, yes, that's the problem, because the shareholders aren't the majority of the public, right? Especially right. They say only about 50% of the people actually even own stocks, and how many of that percent own the most amount of stocks? Very few amount of people actually own the most amount of stocks in this country.
Oh yeah, and it's like, I own stocks through my retirement fund
and
through an IRA that I opened up
Yeah, but you get these bootlickers who are like,
it.
oh, well, my stock portfolio up went 150% under Trump, and it's like, well, that's great, but you might have made like a couple $100,000 in your retirement, which
Maybe
isn't
because
is maybe which
that's
you don't know what's going to be at the end of it, but at the same
exactly
time, there's people who made billions of dollars off this, and like for nothing basically, and
right.
they're the ones who are like really benefiting, and they're the ones who are going to be able to control everything. And you're just like, well, I'm doing better too. And it's like,
No,
yeah,
I'm
but you're not.
like I can see my stock went up, but I can't like my retirement and my IRA. I can't cash those out until after I'm 65.
Right,
So
and it sounds good, right? It sounds, oh yeah, my
hey,
stock.
oh, look at that.
But
That's why I'm in like for my IRA anyways. And this is the thing, my parents always said like they wish they knew more about stocks when they were younger, and like it's something they don't teach you about in school at all unless you take like a finance class in college and all this stuff. Like you don't know anything about the stock market. It's mystery. Even they don't know how the stock market works. Let's be honest here. But
yeah, I'm still under the impression that all the stock market stuff is actually like just fake.
It's mumbo jumbo.
It's just like it's just like
witchcraft.
Random people putting in numbers and being
it
like,
totally is.
I mean, no, it's not. I mean, to a certain extent, it's really not. But at the same time, it is kind of random. It can be highly manipulated.
But it's putting value into something that
it's gambling. It's basically gambling. We've had this argument, I think, on before, especially when the whole GME thing's going on. It's basically it's gambling with with corporations, and there's definitely ways to manipulate it.
But saying this percentage of this company is worth this much money,
right?
And how they come up with that calculation is like beyond me. I think
a lot of it's guessing. A lot of
it's
the
movie Trading Places,
a lot of it's trends. A lot of it's like, how many people are buying into this? What's that?
Have you seen Trading Places? Dan
Aykroyd, a long time, but yeah.
Well, because they like the whole trading floor scene at the end, like they did the whole thing based off how the stock market actually works. Like, stock market people watch that scene. It's like that's exactly what it is, and they manipulated it because they withheld information, and they released information to certain people at a certain time, and they manipulated the prices.
And that was what 1984. I think the movie came out.
Yeah, exactly.
And now things have gotten even crazier with the advent of like the computer systems and how computers trade and
because they have micro trading.
Making millions of transactions in like seconds.
It's insane. But yeah, so people getting richer and all that stuff. How did we even get to this conversation?
Radio. We started talking about radio,
and that was just a random comment from the very beginning. I woke up this morning going, what are we going to talk about today besides tragedy? And then, so speaking of radio, yes, one reason why I don't like always playing NPR when my kids are in the car is because they're young kids, and like I quickly switched it this morning because as I turned it on, they were talking about the tragedy in Atlanta from Tuesday on the morning's radio, and I was like, I don't want my kids hearing this right now before they go to school, so I switched it off. But I think that's my segue.
Yeah, I was thinking about the podcast this week, and I was like, oh, last week we talked about fun things, and we got to talk about some video games and stuff like that. And it's like, oh, things have been going a little bit better anyway.
I do have a Civ 6 update.
Okay.
First of all, real quick, I'm about to win a culture victory. And second, someone made a mod that lets you play as the Empire from Star Wars.
That's pretty cool.
So you can have stormtroopers as your soldiers, and Palpatine is the ruler.
Is the ruler? That's pretty cool.
That was my update. Okay, now
that's a good endorsement for buying the computer version, because that's not going to happen on the Switch. But
yeah, probably not.
So switching gears to the tragedy in Atlanta this weekend, or this week. What was it? Wednesday?
Tuesday.
Yeah, this whole week has been flying by. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say that hasn't already been said, but I mean, we definitely want to touch on these things. It's almost embarrassing the way people have treated this. You hear like, it's always when you have a white mass shooter that people try to find excuses for the person.
Where's the justification? Why did he do it?
Yeah,
what was wrong with him?
And yeah, you want to know what their motive is because you want to like maybe stop systemic issues from happening. But it's almost like I feel like people are trying to sympathize with this guy, and he's like he murdered 8 people, and people are trying to not classify this as a hate crime.
Right.
which is what I think the thing that bothers me the most. You know, even I think the Atlanta police came out and was like, "Oh, we're not sure if we can classify this as a hate crime because the shooter says it wasn't racially motivated." And well, yeah,
How does the shooter have just the?
he shot up 3 Asian massage parlors. Um, so I don't know how you don't classify that as racially motivated.
I'm like,
I understand that
if
he
you're the
frequented
shooter,
some
if you're the
Asian
shooter, how do
massage
you get to
parlors.
decide what the
You know, there were witnesses there I've heard that have said that he said basically, "I'm here to kill Asians." But again, because it's a white male, the police seem to be more apt to believe the shooter instead of the victims, or at least the people that were the witnesses that were there.
And now we have victim shaming going on as well, because
Yeah,
also it's rumored that these are like quote unquote massage parlors.
yeah.
You
I mean, I
know,
don't think there's any allusion to what these massage parlors actually
and
are.
he has a
I think we all
sex
know
Yeah.
what they are. But I mean, this is a whole bigger, broader issue about
So
legalizing sex work and making it more
right. So now
transparent. And
we're shaming sex workers now because so it's victim shaming.
yeah,
And that's another reason. It's like,
that's
oh, he's a upstanding white male citizen, and these are
yeah.
Asian
They tempted
sex
him
workers.
into basically they tempted him into committing horrible crimes, which is ridiculous. And it's embarrassing.
He just hates himself, is what it
But
is.
I mean, I think reports in the past year or so have talked about how Asian hate crimes are on the rise because of our former president coming out and saying things about China. And let's be honest, like
The China
most
virus.
white people in the United States, like don't really differentiate between Asian cultures, right? They have
Right.
because there's really like very little way to like put a picture out there about it. Like we just like a lot of people, and I don't say we because that's obviously we don't want to do that, but a lot
The
of people
royal
out there
we.
do
Oh.
just kind of combine Asia into one kind of culture and race, and that's not the way things work either.
First of all, Asia is a giant continent that goes from like Russia all the way
Right.
to Vietnam. So we go from, Slavic to India to, it's wide ranging what Asia is. So really, we're even narrowing down to Southeast Asia.
I mean, that's a problem.
If you're talking about what we consider Asian is really Southeast Asia. And then within that, you have several different cultures. Like you have Laos, you have Vietnam, you have Korea, you have China, you have Japan, and there's a couple others in there that I can't think of all the names right now. But it's like you said, to just say Asian or anyone that you think looks Asian is Chinese. It's like the cultural differences between them. They have similarities, but they also have big differences. And first of all, to judge anyone on their cultural heritage alone is wrong anyways, and to assume what their cultural heritage based on what they look like is wrong because you don't know without talking to them and having a conversation with them. Culture, and if you are educated on their culture, because I have worked with we've had foreign programs come over here during the summer, and I've worked with both Japanese and Chinese students, and there are cultural differences based on how they're raised and how
differences. I mean, both
countries
so, at war for a large part of this history of the world.
Well, so but my point is like physically looking, you should not make a determination of whether they're Chinese or Japanese, but knowing what their cultural differences, I can, and having interacted with many people before, I can know what culture they're from based on how they treat you, how they introduce themselves to you. How they, what in the manner that they bow is different between the two cultures. It's the subtleties are different, are huge, and it's amazing. But
yeah, a lot of people in this country like you said, like to put people in boxes.
Yeah,
based upon how they look, which is going to get you in a lot of trouble because it's not the way the world actually works.
Even China, look how big China is.
It's a way to simplify things for people that isn't accurate. And
that's like saying someone from Manhattan is the same as someone from Oklahoma. They're both Americans, but they have different cultures. We act differently whether you're city life or country life. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, but you see the same thing with African Americans. Like there's a broad range of people, of color that come from different places in the world, and to just put them in a category based on their color of their skin is where
Well,
you start to run into problems.
well, first of all, not only natural migration that happened over time, but also forced
Forced
migration.
migration, which is a
Well,
big part.
there was some natural, but there
Oh
was
yeah, yeah,
also
yeah.
a lot of forced migration
There's
into
a lot more
several parts,
a lot more forced migration is the problem.
into more than just America, into Europe and other parts of the world. So now you have people that are several generations
Right.
separated from their tribal ancestry.
And the islands, don't leave
Yep.
out like, your Jamaicas and your Bermudas and
Well,
your
exactly. Well, that was part of the slave trade. They went to Jamaica, and so it's just like, exactly, like to see, oh, you have dark skin, you must be African American. Oh, where do you come? And like, no, you don't
yeah,
know. They could have come here from the UK.
yeah, race is a social construct.
Yes, I said that in my class the other day. I was like, you notice I never say race because race doesn't exist.
No, it
I
really
talk about
does.
I talk about ethnicity and cultural heritage.
And I think that's what people have issues with. They start to tie race with culture, and they're not the same thing. It's the same,
No,
this almost the same way. It's not the same, but it's almost the same way as like, sex and gender aren't totally related. There may be a component there, and there might be some way to like,
hmm
um, generalize, but at the same time, like it doesn't always match up the way you imagine it to. It's the way people always imagine it to.
I mean, at this point, I feel like myself, technically I'm what cultural, ethnicity wise, Italian and Polish and Sicilian and Russian, but I'm so far removed from those cultures. Like aside from eating food,
Well, your culture is America. Is basically
yeah, I'm American.
he's
That's
American.
that's how I think of
Right.
it. I'm like I'm American. Like, it's my great grandparents that came over here on a boat over 100 years ago, and I've never been to Italy. I've never been to Poland or anything. And if I go there, I'm gonna be a foreigner. I'm not gonna know anything about anything.
Well, you don't even speak the language, as far
Definitely
as I
not.
know. Anyway.
No, I do not.
Um,
I can call you a pig, but
but yeah,
so.
the shooting. I mean, there's so many different facets that you can touch on. You know, the rise in Asian hate crimes,
Hmm.
the way people fetishize Asian women in this country, or maybe throughout the world. I don't know. I'm just talking about
No,
what I know.
that
Um,
that is a thing.
it's a huge thing, and the shooter apparently did frequent these massage parlors, and that was just kind of his way to exercise his own demons. Um, Another thing that I wanted to point out that bothers me is that we're not talking about the religious component of this at all,
Mm.
because he did have strong religious beliefs, and he felt like
Oh, my light died.
and he feels like these justified his actions, because he was trying to excise his sex addiction. It speaks to a way we talk about sex in this country, and we kind of talked about how that affects sex workers and the way we treat sex workers, and um, push those into the back rooms, and that makes it dangerous for people. And there's so many kind of facets about this thing that happened that we're not talking about, and I think that's kind of what bugs me the most about it.
Hmm.
And the fact that, like I said, people are trying to make excuses for this kid. The officer came out saying that, oh, he had a bad day.
I saw that clip and I was like, "Come on!"
An officer who, by
I've
the
had lots
way,
of bad days.
has posted social media posts about racist tropes against China and the
Oh
coronavirus.
yeah, yep,
Yeah, that
I saw
T-shirt.
that. Yeah, he had the coronavirus, the China virus shirt.
Yeah.
So we already, it's like you're a person of the law, and we know what side of the law you already fall on. It's
Right,
like,
and that's another thing that people don't talk about is the abhorrent racism that's inherent in police culture. That's just another facet to this thing. There's so many things to talk about in this one incident, and people are just focusing on, oh well, it was another bad crime and done by a white person that we're not really going to talk about that much. It hasn't gotten as much play as I thought it would. It's interesting to see that this time around, like, the whole gun issue really hasn't been brought up.
no, yeah, right. I haven't
A
seen
lot of
anything
people aren't.
about that. I think
You
people are
don't see a lot
more
of the anti-gun crowd pushing this one.
right now. People are
I
more
think that has to
outraged
do with the
about
fact that there is so much to talk about other than just
right.
gun laws.
It's the cultural attack. It's more about the Asian American community that is like scared about this. Like,
Yeah,
because
I
it's
mean,
not like you said.
there have
This
been
is the
reports
biggest
of
thing that's happened, but this has not been isolated. We've had, on campus we've had an issue with it. You know, so it is going across the country, and it's like you said before, is stuff that was stoked by our former president that made this a racial issue about the coronavirus and causing those problems, and it's beyond wrong. And to your point earlier about we're trying to find like justifications because he's a white guy and why he did this versus last year when George Floyd was killed, it was look at how bad this person was.
Right. How can we? Right.
How can we
How can we
justify this
blame the
killing?
victim in that
It's
case?
yeah, so it's always victim blaming when the perpetrator of the killing is white.
Right.
You
I
know,
mean, yeah. I mean, that's nothing new. You know,
and
that's not a new phenomenon, and
no,
that's
it's
it needs to be addressed. But
in a big
people,
way.
yeah. So I mean, what do you say about this tragedy other than like there's like I said, there's so much to talk about when it comes to this one incident that I think things are kind of getting lost in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
Because like we just rambled off like 4 or 5 different issues that stem from this. You got sex work, you got Asian hate crimes, you got religious mentality about sex.
Well, when it comes to like the sex work, and so here's my thoughts on this, especially with sex work, right? And there's definitely places where it's legal in this country, but most of the places it's not legal, and like I'm trying to think of which end to start with this conversation because there's if you legalize it, you protect the workers more. They have more protection because now they're not beholden to pimps. They're not living in squalid conditions. They have legal rights. They can
Right, they can go.
they're not going in and out of jail. They can go get tested.
Right, if something happens to them.
Right, they can go. If they have a client that gets abusive, they can go to law enforcement. So there's a lot more protection for them. And here's the thing: whether it's legal or not, it's gonna happen. And the fact that we make it illegal because most of our laws go back to a Christian Judeo origin of trying to be moral, and I understand that. But at the same time,
purity, right?
We're trying to be pure.
Mentality.
The Puritans that came over, and we try to be, like you said, we're trying to be all the Puritans, but it's gonna happen. So why don't we just protect people instead? If you want to really be helpful to people, give them protections. You're basically by trying to be pure, by trying to be doing the moral thing, you're actually doing the least moral thing possible. I mean, even Jesus had a prostitute for a friend.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty famous story in the Bible that people.
Yes, Mary Magdalene. Like... It's like that's the thing. It's like if you're a Christian and you believe this and that's what you say you follow, and yet you at the same time are denigrating these people that are sex workers. I mean, they're people. Yeah. They're doing a job. Let's give them protection. Let's let them get health insurance.
About, Christian hypocrisy. Like that's not that's not a hard subject to bring up. I mean, there's so many things you can talk about, like helping the poor and yeah.
And here's the fun fact: it's like you don't personally have to endorse sex working to say it should be legal and protected.
No. Like, it's the same thing with abortions, right? You see this. You
exactly
see the same argument when it comes to abortion.
Exactly what I was thinking about, because personally, I would not want anyone I know to go get an abortion. I had a student once years ago tell me very subtly that she had like the morning after pill, and I was kind of like, I was taken aback by it, whatever, and I was like, that's okay, but at the same time,
after pill.
No, she actually had an abortion. I'm not gonna say, obviously I don't even remember her name at this point. This was like
Well, yeah,
15,
don't I mean
18 years. I would not,
you don't
even if
want
I
to come out
remember,
and say a
I
name.
wouldn't say no. It was blah, 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 no. But at the same time, like, so personally, I would not morally want to do it or encourage anyone I
It's a
know
good
to
thing
do
that
it.
you never will have to, Keith, because
Right.
you'll never be pregnant.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like,
Let's put that out there too.
I'm saying
like
I wouldn't want
you're a man. You'll never be pregnant. You'll never have to have an abortion. This won't be an issue.
that is a fact. I do not have ovaries that I know of. But you know what I mean. I don't want anyone I know, even if it was like, if I had gotten someone pregnant or whatever, I wouldn't want them to do it because I would not feel comfortable with it. At the same time, I think it should be legal because, again, people in weird situations aren't going to go out and get abortions, and then you're going to cause more problems by people going to places that you should not be doing abortions, back alley abortions, things like that, where
Right, it puts
now
people
you're
at risk.
putting everyone at risk. And I really think we're talking about I've always think we're talking about the wrong end of the problem. Because if you're already talking about the abortion, we've gone to the wrong end. Where you start is the education beforehand. And it's all because it's the uber conservative family that doesn't want to educate their kids about sex because they think abstinence is the only policy until you're married, and they don't tell their kids about the right ways to do things just in case they get in trouble. And
Right,
then
and we know
they
for a
end up getting
fact that
pregnant by accident.
abstinence only
Doesn't work.
education does not work. We know. I mean, there's plenty of statistics out there to confirm that abstinence only education is the wrong way
Right.
to go about things. And not only does it doesn't work as far as abstinence goes, it also leads to higher rates of abuse
Mm-hmm.
because children don't know how to express when they are sexually abused, and they don't know how to come out and tell somebody about something like that. So
And say you're a young girl and you've been taught abstinence only, and then either
oh
you go
boy,
out.
you gotta stop
No,
putting this
no,
into a gender box.
no. This makes sense because you can't get pregnant if you're a boy.
That's fair.
That's
But
where I was going.
okay.
You cut me off too soon.
Well, you
I
can
was
get pregnant if you're a boy, if you have ovaries.
So if you have ovaries and you're young and you've been taught abstinence only, and then either you engage with a person of the opposite gender that can impregnate you, or you're forcibly done so, but you've been taught abstinence only and you've been taught it's a sin, how comfortable at that point are you to go to your parents for help? Or are you going to go off on your own to try to find someone to help you? Because if you have been taught by your parents that this is an evil sin and you should not do this,
And you'll be
and then you
punished
do
for
it, and you're gonna be punished for it, and you go and it goes and happens to you, whether willingly or unwillingly, either scenario, it's less likely that you're going to go and ask for help from your family. Whereas if you are brought up and you're educated about, okay, this is how you can protect yourself, you shouldn't, you should still wait until you find the right person because you don't want to make a mistake and you don't want to get in a weird situation. But if you do find yourself in that situation, make sure you protect yourself. And if something ever happens, you can still come and talk to us because we don't want you to go through anything alone. So if God forbid, that does happen and you become pregnant and you didn't want to, we're here to support you and get you through this and not think that you're on your own, because that's where I think a lot of the problems happen. And then you take care of that, abortion rate goes down because all of a sudden people have either they are educated better to be able to prevent from becoming pregnant in the first place, or if they do become pregnant, have a support group that will help you raise the child and you're not feel like you're on your own.
Yeah, and I think we can
So
even
box over.
I think we can even tie this back to the tragedy, because the shooter claimed to have a sex addiction, and
Don't we
thought the
all?
proper way to deal with the sex addiction was to murder his
The people that
um,
gave him sex
the people that
enabled it.
enabled, I guess that's not the word I want to use,
Oh,
but in his mind
well, yeah, his mind enabled. It's like
enabled him
if you had a gambling problem going up and shooting up the casino kind of thing.
right. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a icky word to use for the situation, but in his mind, yeah, I guess these people enabled him, and his way of getting rid of his temptation was to murder them instead of, which would probably be the better way to handle things, is to actually talk to somebody about his sex addiction, like a mental health worker, and and do something
Mm-hmm.
about that a little more health. In a little more health. I mean, I don't even know if the kid really had a sex addiction or not. He might have just that's the way he kind of internalized things because again of his deep religious views and how religion and sex kind of gets sometimes
Or
very
he's smart enough to know that
very
a
mashed
hate.
together in a very unhealthy way.
He could also just be smart enough to understand that if he gets branded with a hate crime, it comes with a stricter punishment. So he's trying to say he has a sex addiction,
I
so
don't
he
think
can't get
that's
branded
I
with.
don't think that's his. I don't think he's
Oh,
thinking of these kind of things when
I don't
you
know.
know.
He clearly wasn't thinking a lot on Tuesday at all.
Right. I mean, when you go murder somebody, I don't think you're thinking, "Oh, is this a hate crime or not?" You know, I think it's. I mean, it is a hate crime, but I don't think you're. I don't think the person doing it is thinking, "Oh, I'm gonna
The
go." I
question
mean,
is,
even in his mind, he wasn't committing a hate crime. Like obviously he's coming out and saying like this wasn't racially motivated, but at the same time, from an outsider's perspective, you can obviously tell that it was racially motivated because he literally targeted like a racially a racial place, an Asian massage parlor, right?
mm-hmm.
So it's from an outsider's perspective and an objective perspective, yes, it was a hate crime. Not to mention, I think violent crimes against women can be classified as a hate crime.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Especially against sex workers should be classified as a hate crime because again,
It's a group of people.
We need to protect these people. The laws should help enable them to be protected rather than to demonize them and to have the kind of have society like look down on sex workers.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that's would benefit society in many ways. You're starting to see it a little bit. I think sex work being a little bit more normalized, especially because of the internet. But again, like
OnlyFans.
The Trump administration, hate to talk about the Trump administration bringing them up so many times, but they did a lot of work to push sex workers back into back alleys and shady practices that endanger people's lives. So yeah, it's sad. It's sad, and the problem is that we always try to look for solutions to things like this, and I think we've kind of touched upon like how we can make things better, but at the same time, I don't think a lot of people are willing to take those steps to make things better, and that's what kind of makes me the most pessimistic about this kind of situation.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
It's a tragic note. That was
downer note.
Yeah, that was downer.
So real quick,
you want to hear the thing about Fox News that I heard this week?
I always like to hear things about Fox News.
So apparently earlier in the week, I think on Monday, I sent you the link just before. I don't know if you saw it.
I didn't get a chance to read it, but yeah.
It was just a tweet. Well, it was a 20-second clip. So, but
I was busy.
Seriously, you're trying to turn the camera on,
setting up my camera and backdrop, even though like this is again is an audio podcast. I do a lot of work to set up the video for no reason. I don't know why.
I don't do my makeup.
Makes me look better.
I'm very red.
Well, you can actually the angle of my camera is really bad right now, but that's another story.
So apparently, and I really only got wind of this because I was on other social media and I saw it, so I looked it up. But the irony of all ironies, Fox News is trying to enlist Gen X to help cancel culture. So Gen X
cancel the cancelers.
Gen X.
It's the only way to fight cancel culture is to cancel more people.
But then a lot of Gen Xers that I saw on social media reminded me like, and I remember these. If you remember back in the early 80s and the mid 80s and through the 90s, the boomers, the people that are upset about cancel culture right now, tried to cancel Dungeons and Dragons. Tried to cancel rap music and heavy metal music. Remember, we had the whole decency hearings about music, and Dee Snider was up there, and that's where we got our parental advisory labels on CDs, which is actually a selling point.
It still happens. True
irony. I know, but you get my point. It's like they're trying to the generation that they tried to cancel Gen X, and now they're asking Gen X.
Cancel culture is not a thing.
Help.
All right, anyone listening out there who thinks cancel culture is an actual thing, you're wrong. It's not a thing.
Just like there's no war on Christmas.
People are trying to make it a thing because it supports their argument. But it's not an actual thing.
Right.
Number one, a lot of these things that are getting canceled, as we talked about in the past, have not been canceled by the government or by radical leftists.
No, it's been a capitalist thing. It's like, a book company saw that these 6 books, one, they were outdated material because of the content, and 2, they didn't sell well.
Same thing with Potato Head.
Potato Head.
The same thing with Pepe Le Pew.
Oh my God, the Pepe Le Pew thing.
The Pepe Le Pew memes have been off the charts lately, and
I don't
understand why.
This week.
So, to be honest, Pepe Le Pew cartoons were probably some of the worst out of the Looney Tunes, and not just because of the content; they just were boring.
So I always thought as a kid, the joke to me was, oh, he thinks the cat is a skunk. That was the joke,
he's
right?
A skunk, and the cat doesn't like the skunk because the skunk is smelly, and it was.
But clearly, that's not the joke. The joke, and now when you look at it now, it's like, wow, that was really creeper status.
Well, I think what a lot of people aren't realizing is that this is a lot of the way men, especially back then, I'm sure the men were writing the cartoons at the time,
acted.
This is the way they act. This is the way courting. They thought the appropriate way to court was like. I'm just going to
force myself on you so much
until you finally go out with me. And I don't even think it worked in the cartoon. Some people pointed that out, and that's not the point. The point isn't that it wouldn't work, right? The point that it was a cartoon made for children that explained this behavior, and even though it wasn't a successful behavior, it showed that it was a way to act, and it wasn't totally inappropriate. So I think that's the issue.
Someone I know posted this week, like, WAP at the Grammys and Pepe Le Pew canceled.
Every conservative I think I know posted.
And I was like, these things are not equal.
No.
They are not equal. This is an adult talking about her adult body designed for adults to listen to.
But it was at the Grammys.
And this is...
Now a kid can't watch the Grammys. Don't watch the Grammys anyway. This is ridiculous. Nobody should be watching the Grammys.
It's not like they played the whole song at the Grammys, did they? I don't know.
Well, she did the dance, and people were like, "Oh, they were out." People are always outraged about these kind of things.
Oh,
and
they're outraged.
They don't realize that these are the same people that want to cancel like someone like Cardi B for WAP.
But we can watch the Rock City. I mean the Rockettes dance in their high heels and skimpy clothes in time because that's the Rockettes.
Not singing about their vaginas, Keith. So it's okay.
But guys can talk about their male thing whatever way they want to, because they're you
go back to the 80s and the 70s and even before that. I'm sure there were a lot of coded songs about genitals.
So many.
Like, did anyone come out and want to cancel Kiss for all their songs? I mean, they sang about their penises all the time.
Oh my God.
I mean, I'm sure half their songs are either about penises or cocaine. So no one wanted to go out. No one was. Well, I'm sure people were crying to cancel them, but it's almost. I feel like it's the same people now that are crying about Cardi B. And what's the difference, Keith? What's the major difference between a band like Kiss and Cardi B? There's two major differences.
One,
they're kind of hard to pick out.
I don't know. Could it be that 4 white males and 1 black woman?
I think that's
I think that's
the
two
big major differences. Race and gender.
Race and gender right there.
Seems to
but Kiss, they're Jewish though, so it's different.
They were Jewish, but I don't think they kind of
are
really
present tense. They're still alive.
That's true. But they didn't really come across as Jewish. It wasn't like they were like out there like.
No, they weren't. Well, they didn't have space lasers at the time, so.
They probably did have space lasers. Maybe that's where the space lasers come from. Maybe Kiss.
When you talk about the Kiss Army, that's actually what they were doing. They're building the Kiss Army the whole time.
We shouldn't bring her up because she's going to manifest herself if we start talking about her again. We haven't heard from her in a couple weeks. Who? The crazy space.
Oh yeah. Oh.
Jewish space laser woman. I'm forgetting her name, which is good because I don't want to remember it. I know it did.
Yeah. She said something else crazy this week. Forgot.
Did she?
Yeah.
I thought she was going away.
No, she's an elected official.
Yeah, but she needs to go away.
Yeah.
Just don't give her any. Don't give her any freaking airtime.
Well, that's why I also don't. It's one of those things. Like, I don't want to say her name. I didn't want to say the name of the shooter in Atlanta because I don't want to give breath to people's names.
Yeah, I don't even know.
I don't know it off the top of my head, but I don't want to. I was thinking about looking up. I was like, no, I don't want to give him credit. Yeah. That's like sometimes I appreciate on TikTok where when people do responses to people that are being bigots or whatever, Because like you can do a thing where you stitch to the person's original thing, so now you both get views. I see some people like they'll just copy the video and repost it without crediting the original person because like I don't want to give this person any more views than they already get. But what they said is stupid. Like
Yeah,
so
conservative TikTok is a weird place, isn't it?
oh, I have not ventured in there.
Like, I don't have I don't have a TikTok.
Some things creep in, but I have not gotten there.
I do, like, I'll be honest. Most
I'm on D&D
conservative
TikTok.
people I know on Facebook have gotten the unfollow button.
Yeah,
There are a few that I haven't unfollowed yet, and
I can't. I'm done.
They're more the ones that I'm more likely to like have like better arguments with because they'll either not respond to me or just like complain about how people always just show up to argue with you. So that's fine. I don't mind that. But I think a lot of like the few people that I haven't unfollowed yet, we don't really get into arguments. It's basically like they'll post something, I'll retort to it, and they'll just like my status because they don't want to argue with me because they really don't have any arguments for what they're posting. But
yeah,
the one person, and he's even older than us, but he's on the TikToks, and he likes to post conservative TikToks, and it's like this, and because usually they're younger people, and it's just like wow, like this is what the conservative youth is about right now.
Yeah, they're weird. Like the
I think all young conservatives at one point had to have some kind of weird mentality just to be a young conservative to begin with.
Yeah, I don't know.
But at the same time, yeah, I mean to go out there because TikToks looks like hard work too. They're not easy like videos to make sometimes.
You do this, you go.
Yeah, but there's some editing in there involved, and like,
but you can do it all within the app.
Yeah, but still, it takes a little bit of work.
Or you can edit outside the app and then upload it later. You can always
Can you?
Yeah, you can.
I think it had to be all in the app.
Because I think you can. Because people like upload clips from like YouTube on there.
Huh.
So I never give credit to anyone that's just uploading other people's material. I'm like, no, you're not getting a like for that. I mean, I enjoyed it, but you just copied something from YouTube and posted it.
You don't.
Sorry, you're not getting credit.
Your algorithm because you just.
I want original content.
That's right. If I'm gonna like your stuff, it better be original.
Give me some. There is a construction worker who just started this thing called "Can I hit it with a hammer?" He goes, "Hey guys, I'm here again with can you hit with a hammer?" I have. You ever have a sink and wonder, can I hit that with a hammer?
I like the joke better when it was done on Community. Can I fry that? There was a whole class.
Well, do you remember, like mid 2000s, there was an advertisement for a blender, and they used to do the like, will it blend?
I do remember that.
They put different things in the blender and to see if it blended. And one day he put a figure of Chuck Norris in,
but the blender.
No, he dumped it all out, like because it was Chuck Norris and a bunch of bad guys, and it blended it all up, and then on the pile of plastic on the ground, Chuck Norris rose from the plastic.
Clever.
I was like,
Norris memes. Simpson times.
Chuck Norris. I said it last week on Facebook. What happened to all the Chuck Norris jokes? Can we go back to that?
Yeah, there's just so many.
It's just
I was talking to somebody the other day
time.
about social media and how like everything's political, and like you said, it has a lot to do with the way like the algorithms run because they want people to engage, and that's how people tend to engage. But I said this is what happens when people complain about like everyone just posting their dinners and like because you know how you get the Facebook memories, like I go through like my Facebook memories from like 10, 11 years ago was basically just like, I'm going to the gym. Oh,
yeah.
I woke up for work because you didn't really know what to post, and there wasn't like a lot of like I don't even think you could share things back then, right? You couldn't even like
no. Well, remember the first Facebook
really you could post links, but
the early Facebooks it would kind of have like it would be like Keith is and like ... and like you fill in like Keith is and then you like make a status like what you're doing.
Right.
Remember, so it's like you're almost prompted to like talk about what you were doing and not like have a conversation. It was just like Keith
this is what I'm mad about today. But, yeah.
Keith is eating dinner, like.
And everyone started complaining about, everyone just posts their dinners on Facebook, and now look what it looks like. So that's
actually
on you. That's
I am part of a group that's exactly what we do. My friends made
on Facebook.
Well, my friends made a group. It's called Flavor Chat. So it's only about food. People post recipes they make. People talk about food, and that's it. There's no politics allowed. It's only about food.
I'm down for that.
Yeah, it is a wholesome place. It's the only reason why I still have Facebook on my phone, honestly, so I can post to Facebook to the flavor chat. Otherwise,
and while you're thinking of that, I'm gonna plug my YouTube channel. Just another guy talking about stuff. There's a couple cooking videos on there.
Oh, are there?
Only 2.
Yeah.
I made banana bread and something from HelloFresh.
I did watch your episode 9 review of Community last week.
Oh, what'd you think?
I'd forgotten about that. No, did I forget about that? Wait, which episode was that? Oh, yes. No, that was a good
Debate
episode.
109.
Yeah. No, that was a good episode.
It was a good episode. It was one of the best of the early of the first season. Because I'm starting to talk about how communities, you're starting to see like a change. It's still like the later episodes where it got really good. The group has more group things to do, whereas like the early episodes was like it would pair off people in the group and they'd have like their own.
Well, it's easier writing. It's easier to write that initially.
Yeah, and there'd be like 3 different stories in the plot, and then sometimes they'd kind of come together a little bit, and sometimes they just wouldn't even. But you know, obviously later when Community got really good, it was more the group had one goal, and the way the group interacted with each other was kind of what made the show.
Well, you find that with any show, because it's like when you first start it, even though you've had this concept and everything, you're still trying to figure out what the characters are, and you need to see how the characters interact on screen for a while. And once you do that,
if you watch Community, the show, the first 6 episodes are, if you watch the first 6 episodes and then went back and watched like the first like season 6. You'd be like, this isn't even the same show. Like, like.
Do we have to watch season 6 though? I mean, no.
I like season 6.
That was the last one, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The one on Yahoo.
The Yahoo screen season.
It was okay. It was like.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't the Gilded Age of Community like seasons 2 and 3.
That's like when they tried to make Saved by the Bell the second class. I was like,
but even season 4, which when they removed Dan Harmon as showrunner.
Yeah.
That got a bad rap. There's still a lot of good things about season 4 to talk about, and I'll get there eventually. I'm writing my script for my review of episode 10 right now, so I got a long way to go. And the way things are going with work and everything, it's kind of taken me about 2 weeks to make a video. So.
Well, then after you do Community, you have to do Glow.
Glow is a great show.
They got canceled.
What I should do first is review.
Speaking of canceled, they got canceled.
Review episode. I know, which is a shame. What I should do first is review the actual Glow, because I have at least a few of those seasons on DVD. The early ones.
Oh, the early. DVD. I watched the documentary. There was a documentary on Netflix about Glow.
Yeah, that's what kind of pushed the making of the show.
Of the show? Oh.
I don't know.
Well, I watched the documentary after I watched the first season of the show. I was like, I want to know more about it.
Okay.
You know,
I mean, I remember watching it as a kid. I
had no idea it was a thing.
No, yeah, it was on.
My parents didn't.
Fox. It was before.
I wasn't encouraged to watch wrestling as a child.
That's fine. But yeah, it was. I mean, it was definitely like a good like kids wrestling show because of all the different characters. Obviously, it was the '80s, so there were a lot of like racial stereotypes, which was kind of the norm back then.
Should for the listening audience, should we mention what GLOW stands for?
Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling.
That's right.
If you don't know, and if you do know,
now you know.
And if you didn't know, you need to go search out the Netflix show, starring Allison Brie,
which is not a documentary or anything like that.
No, they touch on some things.
It's just taking the scenario and with different characters, but it's basically okay. This is GLOW, but we're just gonna make a completely fictional script about GLOW.
Actually, I am only 1 degree away from it, the cast of GLOW, because I refereed Johnny Mundo, who played the trainer, who got fired after the first day in the show.
You know how long it took for me to realize that Awesome Kong was in the show?
You know what? I didn't notice that either, to be honest with you. Because she looks so much different.
Completely different. And it's like, then when she was...
She can act.
Right. So she works for AEW as well now. Because like she was on screen at the beginning, but she's working behind the scenes for AEW, and that's when I put the connection together because something got mentioned about. I was like, oh wow, she was on GLOW.
Yeah.
Crap. Yeah, she's a really good actress.
Yeah, she did a really good job. I didn't even know it was her, to be honest with you,
And I
for a
love the
while.
fact that they all, so it's like they took a bunch of actresses and trained them to be wrestlers for the show, which is I think amazing. Like we're not doing stunts, we're going to do actual spots.
Yeah, which was kind of the way they did the TV show Glow, the 80s, the actual like Gorgeous Lady of Wrestling was basically it was like they didn't. Yeah, I don't even think the actresses knew they were applying to be on a wrestling show. They just kind of showed up for a casting call and it was like, all right, we're wrestling here. Oh, okay. You kind of tell in the product.
Yeah.
It wasn't a lot of good actual like technical
Rest.
wrestling,
Yeah.
but it was entertaining. It was. I mean, I remember being entertained as a kid, probably for a lot of the wrong reasons, but that's neither here nor there. One other thing I want to mention before we got to get cut off because it's running late. I think I may have made a mistake.
Uh-oh.
Last week we were talking about Governor Cuomo, and I said I don't think that he has the numbers to be impeached. I don't, and I think I'm wrong.
Okay.
I'm actually hoping I'm wrong. I think the tides have turned a little bit this past week. A lot of people are talking about it. Even Biden had something to say about it. So I think a lot of the Democratic leaders in the state are kind of stepping up and saying, like, listen, we need to do something about this. This is a serious problem. We don't know if we trust you to run the state anymore. And like I said, I don't like to give Cuomo too much credit, but I think he did a decent job in the way he handled the lockdowns of the coronavirus. I think he was smart about how he followed things. I'm sure a lot of conservatives would disagree, but I think the numbers are kind of telling about how he was able to at least control the virus a little bit. What he did with the nursing homes, hiding the information was definitely wrong. I have a lot of mixed feelings about that because I don't know what else he could have, other than hiding the numbers. That was obviously the wrong thing to do. But the way he handled the nursing home situation, I think he did follow the advice of the scientists. I think they didn't really take things into account, like how bad nursing homes actually are. They care way more about profit than they actually do care about elderly people's lives. I think people didn't really take that into account, and I think that's why we had such widespread coronavirus death in nursing homes. But yeah, I think I might have been mistaken in saying that I don't think he's gonna get the numbers for impeachment because I think we might get there. Now, whether or not he's found guilty is going to have a lot to do with the investigation and how that gets played out. But
well,
is he going to make it to? Is he going to make it through his what is this, his third term?
third term, I think.
It's yet to be seen. Right now, if I had to gamble on it, I'm going to say no. But
well, that was good journalism of you right there to go and correct your error.
Yeah, yeah.
That's real journalism.
I'm not Tucker
right
Carlson.
Of course, like most journalists, we put at the end of the show.
Yeah, that's another thing we don't have time to talk about. But what was interesting this week was the whole. It's not even really worth mentioning that talking about that much because he's just a jerk. But Tucker Carlson and his tirade against the military maternity wear, because God, what a bad take. And then the Pentagon actually came out and made a statement against him, and he did not like that. He was like, "Oh my God, the government's trying to censor me," which isn't the case. The government just made a statement about the idiotic things that you said. They're not trying to shut you down, Tucker Carlson.
Yeah, you're not being.
I wish
censored.
they were, right? I wish they kind of had that power to shut Tucker Carlson down, but they don't.
That'd be great.
They do have the Constitution.
I feel like
I do believe in freedom of speech, except when it comes to Tucker Carlson. He needs to shut up.
Although I feel like conservative media is like the Hydra. So you take Tucker Carlson out, two others are going to rise in his place.
Well, you talk about Fox News. Fox News to some people now are just in line with the Communist Party because they didn't support the insurrection.
Oh yeah, so now we have a whole new, more conservative news channel.
Yeah, which you notice too has not gotten as much press since Trump has stepped down, and I think that's a good thing. I think that it's funny to think about how these things actually have consequences.
Wait, things have consequences?
Yeah, it's amazing that like the way how fast things have changed in the past month about how like especially right-wing media is getting portrayed in other forms of media. So that's just another point to think about.
Well, it's a great point, and thanks for wasting another hour with us or so. It's been over an hour now. That was a great talk, and
hopefully, went fast.
I hope
this week.
I'm hoping for next week, no tragedies. That's my. Let's go for a week with no tragedy.
Yeah, let's hopefully we can talk about some more fun things again
You
sometime
know,
soon.
I mean, there's so many things that
This
happen
was
we
not a
didn't talk
fun week
about.
for the news, but
A lot of people have been installed in prison. Oh, we didn't even talk about the fact that for the first time in history, the Secretary of the Interior is a Native American.
yeah, well, we just did talk about it, so it's
Well, there you
you
go. I had to
mentioned that.
say it because like that's historic, historic.
Yeah, it is kind of a big deal when you think about it.
Yeah. And Connecticut's getting closer to legalized gambling because Lamont made a deal with the casinos this weekend or this week to do online
Yeah,
gambling.
yeah, I think New York's going to go. I think a lot of these states are, especially your blue states are that don't have legalized online gambling or
Or
legalized marijuana, are starting to kind of
move
push
that
that
way.
way. And I think that has a lot to do with coronavirus because it
A
kind
lot
of
of
did
revenue
drain
went down.
it did drain a lot of the coffers.
Oh yeah,
So they're like, we need to find ways to make money, and it's an obvious, easy fix.
low hanging fruit right there.
But also too, let's make sure we do that and make sure we release all the prisoners that are in jail right now for low level,
Marijuana offenses.
yeah, low level drug crimes.
Yeah,
Honestly, let's just decriminalize
and
drugs
expunge their.
altogether.
I agree. Get rid of decriminalize drugs, expunge the records, and have a better society
Yeah,
for it.
and let's get people help that need it instead of throwing them in jail because it's not the right answer.
Oh, the governor of
That's a
Virginia gave voting rights back to former criminals. That was another thing. See, things
Yeah,
happened this week.
let's hope that sticks because that's what we heard in Florida. Remember?
Yeah.
And then they were like, the people voted for it, and then they're like, oh yeah, no, we know we know it's a good idea and it's popular.
Oh, those people.
But that's not gonna win us conservatives winning the election. So
That's the problem. Well, we'll talk about
democracy
that. Well,
again. Democracy is good. Democracy. We want democracy.
Well, let's talk all about all that and more next week on another episode of Gen Zen. Next week, the 20th episode coming up.
We'll be up to 20.
Oh,
Thanks for
man.
listening. See you.
Bye.